Businesses generally fail for two reasons: starvation from lack of sales, or indigestion from the burden of infrastructure. This program will focus on infrastructure, the megatrend toward remote infrastructure management, and the more specific trend toward remote database administration. The hard fact is that business data is growing exponentially. It's now doubling every 18 months, while skilled IT talent to manage that growth is shrinking. This means that most businesses will likely suffer severe to catastrophic service disruptions unless they adopt a scalable database administration strategy to profit, not perish, from the onslaught of new data. In this program, Gartner Research Vice President Rich Matlis will look at the megatrend toward remote infrastructure management, and John Bostic, CEO of dbaDIRECT, will reveal how companies are able to increase focus on their core business because they choose remote database administration as a sourcing strategy.
Gartner defines remote infrastructure management services as the remote support and management of various IT services that are related to infrastructure support from external service delivery sites. These may be located domestically, nearshore, or offshore. There are two segments that we see being addressed in remote infrastructure management services. One is the monitoring services, in which we see monitoring of things like data centers, desktops, and networks. The second is around specialized support services such as database administration, ERP support, and technical support around platforms such as Unix, Wintel, and Linux. We found that a lot of clients are really interested in remote infrastructure management delivery, primarily because they don't have the skills or the resources to deliver these types of services. And so they're looking at remote infrastructure management as a way to achieve and get these resources. In fact, we did a recent survey of over 300 clients, and we asked them what were some of the key areas. And they indicated that database administration, technical support, and IT help desk are the top three that they're looking for in remote infrastructure management. The growth for remote infrastructure management is an interesting question that clients have told us they want to achieve cost takeout, and that is always a major issue, bringing down cost. But along with that, they want to achieve better speed and agility and flexibility with bringing up different services. They also want to gain access to technical expertise and skills that they may not have in place. And finally, they want to improve the actual IT services that they offer to end users. These are the top 4 reasons that we heard when we talked to clients. The service delivery model for remote infrastructure management takes 2 approaches. One is staff augmentation, in which the client manages the services and the service provider just provides resources that use the client's tools and processes on their site. The second, which is really a best practice, is for a managed service where the service provider actually manages the process, the tools, and brings in automation that improves the scale and productivity. And through that type of a process, you can really turn to a complete commitment to SLAs and really improve the efficiency of your staff. Gardner recommends that any client, when they're looking at a sourcing decision, go through what we would describe as the sourcing life cycle. It starts off with the first phase of following a sourcing strategy, where you take a look at the different services that you are looking at and whether it is appropriate or not and the risks involved. Then you would move on to a phase 2 where you would go through the actual evaluation and selection. And there you would go through a formal process of gathering the final deliverables and getting bids from your various providers. The other 2 phases deal with contract development and sourcing management, which are also very important and need to be included in the whole process. To measure the effectiveness of remote management services, we believe it's very important to have service levels and a commitment to those. And we believe the service levels drive the behavior for the service provider. By setting a metric that is set to the minimum acceptable level that you need to run your business, the service provider then has an understanding of what is important to you. And through the use of service levels, along with penalties and or incentives if appropriate, you can drive the right behavior of any provider. Well, it's important to note that the actual infrastructure services in general is growing from $167 billion in 2006 all the way up to $225 billion by 2011. So there's tremendous growth in these areas. As far as the remote infrastructure services, we find that that's growing at 20 to 30%, which exceeds the overall growth of around 7%. Much of this is in the areas, as I mentioned earlier, of database administration, remote technical support, and IT help desk. The leader of this is in database administration, where we see a range of almost 60% of this that's being offered and delivered remotely. So when you look at remote infrastructure management services, it is a great way to improve your cost, to gain scarce resources where you might need it, and also to get good technical skills to help supplement and support your business.
dbaDIRECT started about